Morgan Sindall was awarded the contract for Phase 1 of the Ness flood alleviation scheme by the Highland Council. Work began in early autumn 2013 with the goal of completing both Phase 1 and Phase 2 by summer 2015. Phase 1 runs on both sides of the river from Friars Bridge through to Ness Bridge in the heart of the city centre. The whole scheme was conceived to protect 800 homes and 200 businesses from the threat of flooding from the river. Traffic management was implemented early on with the closure of Bank Street and reversing the flow across the river on Huntley Street. It was important that the works were handled in such a way that businesses could still receive deliveries and that the congregation of St Mary's Church on Huntley Street could still attend services. Piling works commenced on the 16th of October on Douglas Row. Approximately 1,500 sheet piles were installed over the whole of Phase 1. The sheet piles, made from 11mm thick structural steel and varying between 7.5 and 9 metres long, were vibrated into the substrata to create a seepage wall. To minimise noise and disruption, holes were pre-augured in the ground beforehand to loosen the subsoil in preparation for the piling works. Additionally, vibrating the sheet piles into the ground rather than hammering them in minimised noise even further. Specialists patrolled the site during the whole process, monitoring noise levels. Works continued through the winter months and into early 2014. Public relations and communications remained essential to keep the local residents and business owners abreast of the work's progress and to ease any concerns they had. By January, most of the sheet piling had been completed, although in Bank Street, rock armour was discovered under the top surface and piling was suspended until it had been removed. On Douglas Row, concrete piles were used in an effort to minimise damage to the trees lining the street. A smaller piling rig was brought in to install them, which could work in the space beneath the trees and minimise the environmental impact. Concrete piles were also used on Glebe Street near Friars Bridge in construction of the flood defence ramp. By April, the piling works were complete in all areas and the drainage works had begun. Excavations had begun for the pumping stations in Huntley Street and on Bank Street. Work was underway on the reinforced concrete wall, with the rebar frame under construction on the riverside. Back in Douglas Row, tree supports were put up to further protect the trees from damage while their roots were exposed. During the summer, Bank Street was temporarily open to two-way traffic to ease congestion during the busy tourist season. Work on the underground services on both sides of the river, including street lighting, cabling and drainage, were nearing completion, while work on the flood defence wall was progressing quickly. However, deep excavations for the Huntley Street pumping station unearthed a layer of clay silt, which would contaminate the river if pumped out. The decision was made to install a device known as a water maiden, which would clean the water before pumping it into the river, thus negating the environmental impact. Back above ground, the installation of Caithness slabs for the footpaths and granite roadside curbing was also now taking place. In September, Bank Street was closed once again to allow surface works to continue, and plans were finalised to floodproof the entire site for the coming winter months. Along the river's edge on Huntley Street, the footpath was nearing completion, while on Douglas Row, the tree supports were changed to allow better access for streetscaping and cladding on the concrete wall with its sandstone finish. Work began on the floodgates on both sides of the Greg Street footbridge. Towards the end of November, Bank Street was reopened for Christmas traffic, with pink chip added to the road surface to complement the now completed wall. on the other side of the river, a temporary footpath was built, allowing pedestrians better access to the businesses along Huntly Street, and part of the road from Young Street to Gregg Street was opened. In the weeks leading up to Christmas, streetscaping on Huntly Street had progressed steadily, with the riverside footpath completed mid-December. By mid-January 2015, Huntly Street was reclosed to allow for completion of the building side footpath, while on the other side of the river, Fraser Street was closed to allow for further drainage works. Works on Phase 1 were nearing completion by April 2015. The pumping stations at Bank Street and Huntly Street had been commissioned and were ready for use, and all other underground services had been completed. Landscaping had begun at the small park area at the bottom of Wells Street, and tree guards had been erected along the riverside on the new footpath on Huntly Street. The very final area of streetscaping to take place was between Balnain Street and Celt Street. The flood defences were given an early chance to prove their effectiveness, as March saw the highest rainfall and river water levels for over 40 years. By the end of June, all work was complete. The flood defence wall now runs from Friars Bridge to Ness Bridge on both sides of the river. Huntly Street, Bank Street and Douglas Row have a new road surface with chief curbs installed at the Friars Lane junction to increase traffic safety. The new wall features viewpoints and allows access to the grass bank for the public to sit and enjoy the views of the river. All trees were successfully protected during the construction period, and new trees have been planted on Huntly Street. The widened footpaths leave room for new benches and other street furniture, and will feature commissioned artwork in the coming months. Most importantly, the flood defences themselves have been successful in their installation. The piles under the flood wall prevent water from penetrating the riverbank, while the floodgates can be closed to create a watertight seal against the wall. The new drainage systems direct rainwater into the pumping stations, which in turn distribute the water into the river and out to sea. The Flood Alleviation scheme was awarded with a Saltire Civil Engineering Award in Edinburgh, recognising its excellence in engineering, design and innovation. Representatives from the Highland Council, Morgan Sindall, Mott MacDonald and McLaughlin and Harvey were on hand to accept the commendation, which stands as a national recognition of the talent, hard work and innovation across all aspects of the project. With the flood defences in place, the River Ness area is safeguarded against flooding for the foreseeable future, and the City of Inverness has been gifted a pleasant, creative and aesthetically pleasing space that will endure for many decades to come.